These are the required points to express in your ad. Feel free to paraphrase and speak from your own experience. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So, it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And please make sure, this point, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Do you know the spelling of anchor.fm? ANCHOR.FM. Thank you for your listening. See you.
Hello everyone, I'm Richard Gon of Work to Live podcast version. This time, I'd like to talk about whether urethral sounding is safe or not. I will tell you again. What I'm going to talk about is whether urethral sounding is safe or not, and I'd like you to check this out before doing urethral sounding, which means inserting something thin or small into the urethras of penises. And first of all, at first, I will tell you the introduction of this episode. I think some of you have heard of urethral sounding, and some of you have thought urethral sounding be the same as urethral torture. Urethral sounding, which is treated as a different thing from urethral torture in this episode, is really popular in the field of sex plays, which are done by sadistic ladies and masochistic men. Almost all of you know one of the reasons of such popularity lies on the visual impact urethral sounding has. However, because of that visual impact, I think many of you have that question I'm going to tell you. The question is urethral sounding safe? This time, I'd like to talk about whether urethral sounding is safe or not, and what to be careful of. And the next part is the conclusion. And before shifting into the conclusion, I'd like to tell you the outline of this episode. And what I'm going to tell you is, as I said, whether urethral sounding is safe or not, and I will tell you the conclusion. And I will also tell you its reasons and points to be careful of. At last, I'd like to tell you at last what to do to enjoy urethral sounding. And urethral sounding, or how should I say? Maybe it's up to people who understand, who knows this play. I mean, some people call that play urethral sounding, and some people might be calling the play urethral insertion or urethral torture. And in this episode, as I said, I'd like to treat this urethral sounding as a different concept from urethral torture. Urethral torture is a torture, but urethral sounding is a sex play for enjoying each other. And the conclusion is, urethral sounding is safe, but there are stuff to be careful of. In this episode, I'd like to tell you that urethral sounding or urethral insertion is safe. It's a safe sex play. And the reason is, it's just inserting thin and stick-shaped stuff into a pee hole, which is what urethral sounding is all about. If there's no problem, everything is fine. However, there are points to be careful of, because the internal skin of urethra is fragile and easily injured even by literal rough treatment. And I will tell you the points to be careful of. And the next is points to be careful of. At first, you have some points to be careful of, and the points are, keep the surroundings clean, and the second point is, choose something longer than penises, and third is, never insert too deeply, and fourth is, never rub roughly, and finally, choose something smooth. Which are the points to be careful of? And first, keep the surrounding clean. If you have I'm recording this episode at 2021, in which the pandemic of coronavirus is still exists in this world, which is why maybe most of you know. I think most of you remember the pandemic of coronavirus, which is why I don't think I have to say this, but it's necessary to keep the situation or keep the environment around you have to be cleaned up. And if you have I think, as I said, if you have experienced the pandemic of coronavirus, you never forget to keep where you are clean. If not, or if you don't experience, or if you forgot the pandemic of coronavirus, please listen ahead. And you have to keep clean where urethral sounding will take place. Especially, you have to clean up what is going to be inserted into pee holes. Urethra is led to the inside of human body, and in some cases, viruses invade people through the urethras. Considering which, it's a presumable condition to clean up the object you are thinking of inserting into the urethras of men. If possible, please sterilize those objects to be inserted into urethras. If possible, sterilization or killing all the viruses or microorgans. You have to eliminate such tiny viruses or microorgans if possible. And the second is choose something longer than penises. If you insert a shortened thin stick into an urethra, you have to make sure you will and can retrieve the stick from the penis. If objects inserted into urethras are shortened, they are buried into the penises. The men holding the objects inside the penises have troubles. They not only feel dissatisfaction or sensation of pain, but have troubles in, for example, urination and ejaculation. This grows severe if the objects are wide enough to plug and fill up the pee hole. The situation I have just explained is really dangerous. So I think you have to, I think it's easier or it's safer to choose something longer. If you are going to play urethral sounding, and I think it's better to choose something longer. And moreover, they may have other severe problems related to hygiene conditions of their penises. Such short and thin objects left inside the penises possibly injure the urethras and induce infections and harms the sexual organs and other parts of the bodies. In the sense of what I told you, you need to pay great attention to the choices of stuff to insert. And third is, never insert too deeply. If some stick-like objects is inserted too deeply, that will be harmful. Inserting phase is the most thrilling and the most dangerous part of urethral sounding. As you imagine and know, there is a limit of insertion exceeding which tragic problems happen to men who are inserted soundings in the urethras. The acceptable range of insertions vary by each man and by each penis. In the case of Japanese people, the acceptable range is 15 to 17 centimeter. The standard length of male urethra is 18 centimeter. You have to be concerned about this. And if you are a beginner, you need to attentively observe the expressions and signs appearing on the faces of them, the urethra of who you will insert soundings into. Longer penises can accept longer sticks, and shorter penises can accept shorter sticks. So the above mentioned, so the stuff I mentioned is the case of Asian Japanese people. You can use those values as a reference when playing urethral sounding. I told you the value or the range, which are 15 to 17 centimeter. This is a case of Japanese Asian people, and I think you can use this value for playing this sex play or sexual play. and you have to carefully observe the faces or the countenances or facial expressions of those people who you play urethral sounding with. I think this is safer manner to. I think thinking about this is safer for you and playing urethral sounding. And the forces never rub fast and roughly. I think you can understand this point. The surface of urethra or the inside of penis is fragile compared with other part of human skin exposed to the outside, considering which rough movement of urethra inflicts harsh and severe damages over the man. When playing urethra sounding, you possibly repeat putting in and pulling off of soundings or stuff like them, during which what you have to be concerned about is to treat penises kindly and gently. If you move soundings or other types of symptoms, for example, too fast, too strongly, like trying to remove oily smear or utensils, you will wound, injure, and perhaps destroy the skin of urethras. Such detriments can cause infections which may bring about disastrous results, like for example, amputation of penis. Please make sure that what you're going to treat on urethral sounding are really fragile and weak stuff. Human penises are really fragile and weak. Thinking about which, I think I don't recommend that you rub the urethra strongly or roughly. And finally, choose something smooth. As I explained, urethras are weak and easily get injured, which is why you need to choose the soundings having smooth surface. Although the presumable condition here is to choose stuff without sharp parts, you also have to be careful of stuff having wave-shaped surface. Even curvy soundings may cause damages if they are moved roughly inside penises. When choosing tools, please take this point into a great consideration. This is a presumable condition, but it's better to choose, or it's necessary to choose something I like to stick, or something having smooth surface, which is as I said, a presumable condition for playing urethral sounding. And at last, what to do to enjoy urethral sounding? If you keep yourselves aware of those points I told you, I think you can make the most of the elation of urethral sounding. Urethral sounding gives me another type of sexual pleasure, different from the normal ones, which is why many people are captured and engaged by the sexual play, and some people have tried and are trying to do that. When it comes to searching how to do urethral sounding, you can easily find out websites describing that, including its details. However, you can't make sure or not trust that urethral sounding is safe. Please read and confirm this content before actually doing the sexual play. I hope that you enjoy urethral sounding. I think, when it comes to play urethral sounding, and I think you can, at least, I think most of you or all of you can find out how to play urethral sounding, because it's fine to search websites through Google search. I mean, finding how to play the sexual play, or how to play urethral sounding or urethral insertion is easy. Finding such websites is really easy stuff. But actually, when it comes to finding out, the websites focusing on whether urethral sounding is safe or not, I don't think you can find out. I don't think you can find out. Really trustworthy stuff, because maybe there are some trustworthy websites explaining about whether urethral sounding is safe or not. And my website or this episode is one of such contents. which is why if you'd like to find out whether urethral sounding is safe, or if you'd like to find out the website or some written or some audio contents are fine, whether some kind of contents explaining or focusing on whether urethral sounding is safe, or the safety of urethral sounding or urethral insertion, please check this out, or please check this episode out. Or the written version is fine. This episode also has a written version of this episode itself. So which I think, if you'd like to know the safety of urethral sounding, please check them out, so that you can understand, or I think you can make sure of whether urethral sounding is safe or not. When you play urethral sounding or urethral insertion, I think the stuff you have to check out is points to be careful of. I will tell you again. The part you have to check out in this episode is points to be careful of, which is the most important part of this episode, or this content. Please make sure this point. And before really ending this episode, I'd like to tell you a stuff, which is, I'm a non-native speaker of English, which is why I don't think you could understand. I don't think you can understand all the content, or the entire story of this episode, which is why I'd like you to check out the written version of this episode, and the link of which is pasted into the description column of this episode. Anchor has a description column in each episode, which is why I'd like you to check that out. So you can find the link of the written version of this episode. And I think you could understand part of my story, because as I told you, I'm a non-native speaker. So please check out the written version of this episode. And the story is over. That's it. Thank you very much for your listening. See you